Welcome to the deep dive.
Good to be talking about this one.
So today we're diving into a memoir that it starts pretty aggressively.
It really does. The author is basically laying down a challenge.
Yeah, saying she's sick of women's memoirs being treated as, lightweight stuff.
Exactly. They can only be about diets or childhood issues, not serious literary work.
And this book is her counter-argument. It's built to stake a claim using, sheer force of will and experience.
Absolutely. And this deep dive, it's our way to get inside the head of this really fearless figure, feminist, lesbian, political radical, always operating outside the usual lines, whether that was mainstream society or even, radical groups themselves.
So we're going to cover quite a bit, this incredibly mobile childhood, the deep dive into revolutionary politics.
Right, founding that boundary-pushing magazine on our backs.
And then how motherhood kind of shifted everything for her.
Yeah.
But first, we have to touch on that quote she uses right at the start. It sets the whole tone.
Oh, the Norman Mailer one. It's brutal.
It really is. He's talking about women writers, describing their work as, okay, get this, fey, old hat, queensy-goisy, tiny, too diggly, psychotic.
It keeps going. Crippled, creepish, fashionable, frigid, outer baroque.
Maquillée in mannequin's whimsy, or else bright and stillborn.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that whole list of insults, that's basically the mountain she says she's going to tear down with her story.
You can feel the defiance.
Totally. She's not just writing a memoir. She's forging an identity that absolutely refuses to fit into any of those little dismissive boxes Mailer laid out.
Okay, so let's dig into where that defiance came from. That childhood sounds, intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, intense is one word for it. Constant motion, right?
Unbelievably so. 10 different schools before she was 17.
10, wow.
She and her mother moving almost every single year, everything packed into a 1963 VW Bug.
And she talks about this one specific thing she always carried, her little 15-inch Zenith TV.
That black and white Zenith, yeah.
Tucked under her feet in the car, like an anchor.
It really stands out, doesn't it? In a life with zero geographic roots, those few objects, the TV, the car, they become your constants. She mentions feeling like the total outsider everywhere. Intellectually precocious, but socially inappropriate, was how she put it.
Building her world out of opera and folk songs instead of friendships.
Exactly. And a lot of that instability, that constant movement, it traces back to her mother, Elizabeth.
Right. Described as this hurricane of passion. Anti-bigotry, anti-establishment.
A real firebrand.
Yeah.
And apparently a lot of that came from her own deep dislike of her Irish Catholic background.
The Minnesota Howlerans, yeah. She mentions those old signs, no dogs, no Indians, no Irish.
Oof. That kind of historical sting definitely fueled Elizabeth's worldview, this obsessive need for cleanliness almost, to fight that dirty Irish stereotype.
But that fire could turn inward, right? Become destructive.
Oh, absolutely. The memoir details this really harrowing incident in Edmonton, 1970.
The Saskatchewan River incident? That sounds awful.
It was brutal. Elizabeth had already sold her daughter's bike for cash, gotten rid of her cat, Swithy, another anchor gone.
Oh, no.
Then, in the freezing cold, like 40 below, she has this huge mood swing, crashes the VW into a curb.
He just leaves her.
Just walks off, leaves her young daughter sobbing in the freezing, stuck car. That's a profound kind of abandonment. Conditional love pushed to the extreme.
Wow. Okay, so contrast that with the father, Bill.
Totally different energy. Quiet, scholarly, sort of easygoing.
From Oxnard, California. His dad was a butcher, right? Ollie.
Yeah, and Ollie was adamant that Bill become a scholar, escape that manual labor life.
But that came with its own issues. The text says Bill regretted it a bit.
He did. He got skipped ahead in school, like a grade and a half.
Which meant he was younger, smaller.
And got tormented in high school gym by the older kids. He felt, physically inadequate compared to the other men in his family.
So you got these two powerful contrasting forces shaping her.
Exactly. The mother's kind of damned to be alive, defensiveness, always needing to provoke, to fight, to feel real.
Versus the father's quieter, maybe slightly regretful, but ultimately more secure background. Like he always had something solid to fall back on.
That's a great way to put it, that inherent security, even with the regret.
So how does that mix, that fire and that underlying security, feed into her later radicalism?
Well, it seems she internalized the need to defend the underdog. That came from her mother's fierce anti-bigotry.
Okay.
But she approached it with this kind of ingrained confidence, maybe from her father, that she deserved to have her voice heard. She wasn't just fighting to exist. She was fighting for justice from a place of, intellectual certainty.
Which let her stand apart. even from the groups she joined.
Precisely. She could critique the structures, both mainstream and radical, because she wasn't solely defined by them. She was building her own framework.
And that certainty led her straight into politics. Pretty young, too. 1974, high school in L.A., she's with this radical paper, The Red Tide.
Yep. And her first real political confrontation wasn't exactly a debate club discussion.
No kidding. This varsity guy, David Barry.
Right. He rips up her paper, calls her a fucking communist, threatens her.
And her reaction? Not fear?
Nope. Pure escalation. She grabs the basketball stats he's holding and rips them up, yelling back, "Is that fucking communist enough for you?"
Wow. So for her, the political was always physical, embodied, right from the start.
Absolutely. And her understanding of the body's politics got even deeper. There was this classroom exercise she organized.
Oh, the one with the crayons and butcher paper.
That's the one, asking students to draw offensive things, first non-sexual, then sexual.
The non-sexual stuff was predictable, like war and violence.
Standard horrors. But the sexual drawings, they were something else entirely. Really visceral.
What kind of things?
Stuff like shit sickles, depictions of anal sex, gang rape, a really graphic image of a violent abortion's aftermath.
Geez, not exactly clinical?
Not at all. They were raw fear and violation visually expressed.
And what was the insight she took away from all that? It sounds pretty disturbing.
It was disturbing, but she saw a pattern. The core fear, the visceral of reaction, it all centered on the body's openings.
Openings.
Yeah. And this deep fear of unwanted invasions, it crystallized into this core feminist idea for her. I can push out, but you can't push in.
Huh. Bodily sovereignty is the ultimate defense.
Exactly, against all the chaos and intrusions she'd experienced.
Okay, so at 16, she takes this intensity into the International Socialists, the IS.
Full commitment. And they were serious, focused on what they called industrial priorities. Auto, steel, trucking, phone workers.
Real workerism, they called it.
They did. The idea was revolution led by the actual industrial proletariat. But she immediately spotted the contradiction.
Which was?
A lot of the IS leaders weren't factory workers. They were college dropouts from places like Cal and Columbia.
So educated elites telling the working class how to be revolutionary.
Pretty much. And she was really sensitive to that kind of hypocrisy.
But even in this serious, high-stakes political world, the memoir reminds us she had this other side, right? Her sensual, if guilty, disposition.
Yeah, that doesn't just disappear. There's that anecdote about being a score girl at a swim banquet.
And touching a Playboy bunny's tail.
Actually touching the fuzzy tail.
Yeah.
It's such a strange, specific detail, showing her straddling these completely different realities. Earnest revolutionary, 1 minute, curious teenager the next.
Which must have made the harsh realities of the IS even more jarring, like that incident flyering the Gateway Freight Yard.
Oh, yeah. That sounds genuinely terrifying. She's
Yeah.
confronted by this really aggressive, threatening guy.
And then Stan Holmstrom, the quiet organizer, shows up with a gun.
A holstered gun, yeah.
Yeah.
The text is clear he didn't draw it, but just its presence.
Changes everything.
Completely. Holmstrom was calm but firm. Said 2 things. To the guy, don't talk to the young woman like that, we're leaving now.
And to her.
Get in the car. Just like that. It was this stark reminder that even in their revolutionary bubble, safety could still boil down to a man with a weapon asserting control. Another contradiction she couldn't just brush aside.
Okay, so the IS experience ends, and that energy, political, sexual, defiant, finds a new outlet. On Our Backs, OOB.
Co-founded with Debbie Sundal and Myrna. And the mission statement was pretty direct. Entertainment for the adventurous lesbian.
It sounds like a deliberate move away from all that political jargon and the purity tests of the IS.
Oh, completely. If the IS demanded ideological purity, OOB was about, let's say, honesty about desire. Truth-mongering about women's actual sex lives.
And her co-founder, Debbie Sundal, brought a really interesting perspective, didn't she, from her background as a stripper?
Yeah, fascinating business sense. She had this NFL analogy for strippers.
The NFL analogy.
Basically saying, like, pro athletes, their earning potential has a limited window, so don't blow it all on, quote, a jealous butch prince. Invest it. Buy property. Go to medical school.
Wow, that's incredibly practical. A kind of stripper capitalism applied to a radical lesbian magazine.
Right. A very pragmatic approach.
And speaking of practical innovation, they were early adopters of desktop publishing, which was huge back then.
That was Debbie again, introducing the 1984 Macintosh. It totally changed how they produced the magazine.
But the author was initially terrified of the tech.
Completely panicked. Said stuff like, I can't do it. I barely passed ninth grade algebra. Classic technophobia.
But the Mac won her over.
Apparently that little smiling Mac icon on the screen somehow broke through the fear. It empowered them to do it all themselves.
So they've got this groundbreaking magazine using new tech.
Mm.
But the biggest opposition didn't come from, like, the usual conservative suspects did it.
No, ironically, the fiercest attacks came from within feminism itself.
The sex wars of the 80s.
Exactly. You had prominent feminists like Andrea Dworkin, Kitty McKinnon, who argued that all porn, essentially, was violence against women, full stop.
So a magazine like OOB, which celebrated female sexuality, even potentially kinky sexuality.
It was seen as collaborating with the enemy. Worse than collaborating, maybe. They actually protested OOB, comparing it to the Holocaust or women's genocide.
That's extreme. The infighting sounds incredibly toxic.
It was a really painful betrayal for someone who identified so strongly as a feminist.
And the book hints at some hypocrisy there, too. Rumors about the anti-porn activists' own private lives?
Yeah, whispers that some of the loudest public critics were privately engaging in, quote, everything in bed, just like normal kinky people everywhere.
The irony is palpable.
Thick with it. She calls it a crucible atmosphere, intense public policing of virtue, maybe disconnected from private reality. OB thrived partly because it pushed back against that hypocrisy.
But eventually, the pressure, the exhaustion, it led to her leaving OB, right? And it wasn't an amicable split.
Not at all. It ended bitterly. She needed to step back, focus on her child, and the result...
Lawsuit.
Yep. From her co-founder, Debbie Sundal, demanding 20% of her future earnings because she'd supposedly abandoned her corporate duties.
Wow. After everything they'd built together, that's rough.
It's presented as a major betrayal. The source really emphasizes the author's perspective here. The shock, the feeling of being penalized for prioritizing motherhood.
Does it offer any hint of the co-founder's side? Was it just business or...
The material frames it mostly through the author's lens of betrayal and exhaustion, but it does confirm the suit was about those corporate duties. It kind of reinforces this theme running through her life, doesn't it?
How so?
That even idealistic movements, whether political or cultural, can ultimately break down into arguments about money and self-interest. It echoes that cynical telegram she got way back after leaving the IS.
Oh yeah, the one I just said.
Men are shit. Simple as that. The lesson seemed to be that betrayal isn't tied to gender or politics, it's just human.
Okay, so after all that turmoil, the IS, OOB, the lawsuit, she moves to Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
And then comes motherhood.
And that becomes the turning point. The arrival of her daughter, Aretha Elizabeth Bright. It grounded her. She calls it her true north.
Finding a kind of stability she hadn't had before.
Exactly. A stability that wasn't about politics or geography, but something internal. And she became very conscious of breaking cycles.
The cycle of volatility and, well, abuse she experienced with her own mother.
Right. She knew that stuff loves reruns, as she put it. So she made a plan, talked to her partner about it, and crucially gave her daughter specific instructions.
Which were?
She told Aretha, point blank, if she ever lost her temper, Aretha's job was to turn your back and walk away.
Don't engage, don't try to fix it, just leave.
Precisely, which was the exact opposite of her own childhood instinct to apologize, to cling, to try and manage her mother's moods. She was actively teaching her daughter self-preservation, the power of exit.
So in a way, that conscious parenting becomes her most profound political act, more than the revolutions or the magazines.
You could absolutely argue that, breaking that psychological chain. And motherhood seemed to give her activism a different focus, a nurturing engine, she called it.
More practical, maybe less abstract.
Definitely. There's a great example when Aretha, who's 14 at the time, brings home an older friend, Lorraine, who's scared she might be pregnant.
Okay, how does she handle that?
No panic, just clicks into action, uses all her accumulated knowledge, her connections, takes Lorraine straight to Planned Parenthood.
Applying her life experience directly.
Exactly. And she notes afterwards she might never see that girl again, but she felt satisfied knowing she'd given Lorraine the tools, the experience to handle that kind of situation herself in the future. The goal shifted to individual empowerment.
One person at a time.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to end with that story about UC Santa Cruz. The ultimate ironic twist.
Oh, it's perfect. So she proposes teaching a class, The Politics of Sexual Representation. Sounds right up her alley.
But the dean, Marie Saber, vetoes it.
Predictable bureaucratic wall. Happens all the time. But then fate intervenes.
In a rather dramatic way.
She gets this note, and it reads, Sad news, glad news. Murray S. has had a heart attack and will not be returning to campus anytime soon. Class is on.
Chuckles. Oh my God. That's dark, but also kind of hilarious. Institutional change via cardiac event.
You really can't make it up, can you? The universe just sort of cleared the path. Sometimes you just have to outlast the opposition, apparently. Hashtag tag tag outro.
What makes this memoir so powerful, I think, is that it's not just recounting events. It's really a deep study in how someone builds an identity, finds meaning, while pushing against all kinds of rigid boxes.
Yeah, whether those boxes are from conservative society or hardline political groups or even certain strands of feminism.
And for you listening, the real takeaway might be in those incredibly specific, visceral details she includes. They just stick with you.
They really do. That fear connected to the body's openings, the smell of the Greyhound station urine and disinfectant, the description of the Playboy bunnies looking like they were packed into pastel cupcakes.
It's sensory. It puts you right there. It's not just ideas, it's lived experience on the page.
Exactly. It makes the struggle tangible.
And it all seems to circle back to that fundamental question she kept wrestling with, especially when groups demanded she define herself. Do I have to be something? I'm me. That's all I am and all I want to be.
Which leaves us with something to think about, right?
Yeah.
When you're navigating all the structures out there, social, political, that want to label you, want you to fit neatly somewhere,
Yeah.
how much of your messy, undefined self are you willing to shave off to be acceptable? And what parts, the core parts, do you absolutely have to defend no matter the cost?
That feels like the central challenge she throws down. Defending the undefinable self as maybe the most radical act of all.
Mm-hmm. A lot to chew on there.